Thanks very much, Noel. And before I get into the topic of the slide on the slide there, I just have a few introductory slides about what the association does and our current work programme. It has come from feedback on previous conferences that a lot of people would have attended the conference but never really heard about what the association does. So we did this last year and we've built upon it again this year in terms of explaining our work, as it is an opportunity to engage with you as attendees who mightn't necessarily be within our membership, some of you, but might be interested in becoming part of our network. So we were established in 1999. We're a representative group for the sector. I'm not going to list out the sectors. We know what the bioenergy sector is made up of from this morning's discussions. And we have a diverse range of members, up to 200 members. They could be farmers, foresters, fuel suppliers, right down to people in advisory bodies, consultants, so a wide range of individuals and companies and organisations. And we do offer various different membership options depending on the size of your company, whether you're an individual or you're a company. So please, if you are interested, get in touch with us or talk to us and we'll be happy to discuss the options with you. So the way we're structured, or what we do, is we do the work of a representative group, provide information, promote, communicate, policy development work, lobbying, advocacy. We do quite a bit of advisory from the perspective of companies that mightn't necessarily have expertise about bioenergy within their own networks, but rely on or require information on behalf of their clients. So accountancy firms, legal firms that mightn't have in-house expertise, but they're asked by their clients for some expertise, and we can assist through the provision of that information to the particular company, and that can be further fed on to their client. So that's an important piece of our work and something that might trigger an interest in some people from a membership perspective. And then stakeholder engagement is key, and we have a dedicated full-time executive team working on behalf of members. So we have 5 directors, we have a council of members, and we have a number of different council groups. And the council groups are really where the policy work is done, where the work on the advocacy piece is done, and where a lot of the discussions happen about the broader issues affecting the sector. And any member can get involved in any of the groups except the Wood Fuel Quality Assurance Scheme's steering group, which is elected at the AGM. We have a 5-member team. Noel is our technical executive and works on the WFQA, the Wood Fuel Quality Assurance Scheme. You would have met Teresa on registration. She's involved in events communication, Trish on finance, and Stephen on the desk today with the sound and the presentations. He's our project executive, and we are hoping to recruit a new employee in the coming months. We're affiliated with the European Biogas Association. We're delighted to welcome Julia here today from the European Biogas Association. We value that affiliation, that partnership. And also we're very, very happy to be involved with Bioenergy Europe as well. Stephen was in Brussels last week at the Bioenergy Europe networking event. And I will be attending their conference at the end of November and also the IrBEA conference at the end of this month. And we're part of a network called Renewable Energy Ireland, so we have some members of Renewable Energy Ireland joining us today, but that's a collection of renewable energy associations in Ireland, and it is an important network as well to discuss and agree on common positions on common issues. We roll out a webinar series. I'm not going to go into the detail, but again, if any of you attending here today would like to get involved in our webinar series by presenting or look back at any of our previous webinars, they're available on our YouTube channel and our website, wide diverse range of topics, and we have a fact sheet series as well. There's some of them over there on the table. The Wood Fuel Quality Assurance Scheme is a scheme we roll out to certify wood fuel suppliers across the country in compliance with a quality standard, ISO 17225, and also there is a requirement for certification under solid fuel regulations. The WFQA satisfies that requirement, and there's a requirement under the support scheme for renewable heat, which the SCI team would be able to discuss with anyone today for the fuel spec, and the WFQA fulfills that requirement as well. So there's a network of suppliers, there's a supply chain there that exists. We're also involved in some interreg projects as a way of funding and helping to fund the organisation, and we've been involved in a number, and this is the work led by Stephen, and he can talk to anyone that's interested in our interreg projects. It's interesting to see quite a number of people here today that have come and got involved with our association through the interreg projects, and we very much value those partnerships and those arrangements and look forward to building on that in the future. We have a Midlands Bioenergy Development Project. We recently launched our feedstock report and our energy report for the Midlands, and this project is coming to an end now, but we have helped and supported businesses across the Midlands region to develop and grow under the National Just Transition Fund, under a project under that umbrella. And then finally, from a project perspective, we are rolling out the small-scale biogas demonstration programme. This is coming to an end as well, and the plant is near completion in Galway, and there will be a specific farm-based biogas event later in the year, before the end of the year, to go through the learnings from this project, and then in the middle of next year, when the days are long and the sun is hopefully shining, we'll be inviting you all to go to Galway to see this plant and to see what it does. So this has been discussed earlier about the crucial role of bioenergy, so it just sets in context where we sit as a sector. So bioenergy is made up of obviously the liquid, the gaseous and the solid biofuels, is the largest source of renewable energy across Europe and indeed globally. You'd be led to believe by a lot of the narrative and discourse that takes place that bioenergy doesn't really exist, and while that might be the case in terms of the industry developing here in Ireland, it's a very established industry right across Europe. So that just puts it in context, the contribution that it makes indifferent to all the other renewable generators that exist. And then if you look at it, and Paddy, I think, alluded to this earlier, and a number of other speakers, indeed the Minister himself alluded to it, we're at a very low level in terms of renewable heat, at the bottom of the table from a European perspective. And fundamentally, heat is probably our biggest challenge. I know transport, and we have Andrea here as well, and transport is a challenge too, but heat is a particular challenge in terms of decarbonisation. So what's IrBEA doing? So we're trying to grow and develop supply chains, we're trying to grow and develop networks, we're trying to encourage more feedstocks to come onto the market, mobilise those feedstocks and deal with those blockages. So Noel Gavigan, Eugene Hendrick and Ken Worrell and a number of other supporters who provide technical input developed this document about specified biomass harvesting. It's again a document which encourages and incentivises additional mobilisation of some of the forest resource which currently isn't being mobilised, and it's available for viewing if anyone would like it. It's on our website, and I think there's a couple of copies that we have there if anyone wants it. So please come to us and ask us if you want this or want any details to it. It's on our website as well. The other big piece of work that has taken place over the last year is our solid biomass capacity statement. We have physical copies for anyone that wants them today, limited number. If you remember at last year's conference, there was quite a lot of discussion about perceptions regarding solid biomass, that there wasn't a supply chain, that the resource wasn't available, that the heating technology capacity didn't exist, that the financial models weren't developed, that all of these concerns and issues were raised from a perceptions perspective. So we've addressed all of these issues to prove that these perceptions aren't in fact true, and there is a significant resource available, there's a supply chain there, there's a network of biomass system designers, installers, and this report covers all of that. And most importantly, it gives examples of case studies of where biomass is actually used in large industrial facilities right across the country. Bioenergy in the transport system is a key piece, and we have one of our groups focuses on this, and James Cogan sends apologies today, couldn't be here, chairman of that group, but we have some of our liquid fuel members here today. But in 2021, IrBEA commissioned UCC Marai to develop a report to set out how we could achieve 51% emission reduction in transport. And that boiled down to 5 key areas: delivery of the government's ambition around electric vehicles, increasing the blending rates of biofuels, efficiency measures, biomethane and HVO. So all of those in combination would achieve a 51% target. And again, I have copies of that report if anyone wants it as well. The reports we're working on currently are heat and cost and carbon abatement analysis. That'll be published. We were hoping we'd have it published at this point, but the modelling was quite complex and it took a lot of time, so that's ready to be launched in the coming weeks. We have a report developed, ready to be launched on the design considerations for the successful implementation of a renewable heat obligation. We presented those findings to the department last week, and we will be launching that soon. There is also a report ready to, or will be ready to launch in the coming weeks on liquid biofuel feedstock analysis, where the feedstocks are coming from, all of that area. And we're also preparing at the moment a submission to the Department of Environment, Climate Action and Communications on suggested amendments to the solid fuel regulations. So they're all crucial elements in our work. So I'm now going to just focus on the different sectors. So firstly, in the biomass sector, what are the policy and regulatory requirements for this sector? So we need to legislate for amendments to improve and address issues in the solid fuel regulations. These issues around enforcement, given strength to enforcement officers and all of these. So we're lobbying strongly for legislation for these amendments, to be improved. We want enhanced government, department, EPA and local authority focus on addressing significant gaps in enforcement of the regulations. And to put this in context, biomass or wood fuels are blamed for particulate emissions, and if you combust very wet material, it does have an impact from an emissions perspective in that there are particulate emissions arising from it. But if you dry that fuel to the regulation requirement of 25%, and that's going to move to 20% in time, you significantly and dramatically reduce the emissions footprint of the particular fuel. So that's what we're calling for here is we need enforcement of the regulations to ensure that our members, who are the regulated side of the market, can thrive and expand and develop, and that the people that aren't on the regulated side of the market either come under the umbrella of the regulated side, or they don't no longer exist because they're putting the regulated side of the market in jeopardy. The SSRH, where there's items and issues associated with the SSRH, the cap on the scheme is a big issue. There's issues around state aids from the ETS sector, and there is an opportunity for SEI to increase the tariff rate for biogas and potentially get biogas plants in through that SSRH program. We're also working and engaging with the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment around issues that we've identified in the roadmap for the decarbonisation of industrial heat. And really what we would like to see is an enhanced government, agency and industrial promotion and recognition for solid biomass as a decarbonisation option. On the liquid fuel sector, we really need to see more recognition for the role of the Irish liquid fuel sector in transport, and a key focus on promoting indigenous liquid fuel production, encouraging it, because the liquid fuel producers that are in our membership, some of them are here today as well, are using sustainably sourced and fully traceable Irish-derived waste fats, tallows and oils to produce their famed biodiesel. That needs to be recognised, needs to be supported, needs to be encouraged. And we need to promote and grow the indigenous biofuels sector. And we need to tackle, and we will have a presentation about HVO later, and this is broader than HVO, it's across the full bioliquids supply chain. We need to tackle the issues around sustainability and traceability of non-EU liquid fuel feedstocks that are finding their way into the supply chain and potentially will have a detrimental effect on sustainable and traceable feedstocks that are used to produce fuels. So that's an issue and something that needs to be tackled at a multi-agency level, and not necessarily it needs Ireland to show leadership, but it also needs to be tackled at a European level and beyond that. In terms of the biochar sector, we need further recognition of the sector. We need a carbon farming framework developed in Ireland, and it recognises biochar and carbon removal technologies. But we need research, we need on uses, on applications. There's more opportunities for production, and the economic models associated with this production and also market development need to be considered. And there's a need for upskilling, training and knowledge. And these are the areas we've identified under the biochar sector. Then moving on to the biomethane sector, we've had the strategy, 5.7 terawatt hours. We're going to hear later about on the panel discussion about that further. But what IrBEA are saying in our feedback regarding the strategy is, we welcome the strategy, but it has been stated earlier by other speakers, we need further certainty to attract investment. And what we mean by further certainty is we need a long-term support in the form of a contract for difference, feed-in tariff, some form of a support of that nature that will give the certainty to the market to invest, and it would also help in terms of bridging the cost gap that exists between biomethane and fossil gas. That certainty is required. The capital grants, it might work for some people. It may work for people that want to put in upgraders and other things, but it remains to be seen if it will work in terms of the development of the sector. And then we'll focus on the renewable heat obligation in the next session specifically, or we have piece on that. There are concerns among our membership about the capital grants and how they won't necessarily potentially drive the market forward. However, it remains to be seen. And the ongoing feeding and maintenance costs associated with these facilities is a challenge from a viability perspective. We are concerned then potentially there's a risk with capital grants driving up CapEx, and the volumes of CapEx required are significant. And the government strategy outlines what the plan for funding is and how the current scheme has been administered, what's the plan for the future. Other items to be considered: digestate is a considerable opportunity, but currently digestate is a cost to every biogas plant in Ireland from a business perspective. We want to see the renewer proposals enacted, but we want to see the renewer proposals reflect digestate in its unprocessed form being part of those. That's a big issue from the point of view of Irish farmers, considering we have a grass-based system and the 170 limit in terms of nitrogen per hectare. And really the opportunity to displace chemical fertiliser with organic digestate will only be realised if the renewer proposals are enacted. There is a strategic risk with imported fuels, that's imported biomethane and imported liquid fuels. So that has to be considered in the context of the development of the biomethane sector. And we welcome recognition of the strategy for the different size and scale of facilities that are possible. We also welcome recognition about the possibility to produce biogas and to diversify the existing operations or biogas production facilities into biomethane if the market mechanisms are right, and the potential for biogas itself to be transported directly to consumers. We do acknowledge and very strongly acknowledge that the gas grid is going to be the crucial mobiliser of the main body of biomethane in the country. However, there may be cases and situations where direct supply to an end user is an option. The Biomethane Sustainability Charter must be developed by active and meaningful engagement with the industry, and this is a very important point. We can't have a Biomethane Sustainability Charter that kills the industry before it starts to develop. And IrBEA is concerned that the strategy did not identify that industry or their representatives and mention them as a stakeholder in any of the measures for delivery in the National Biomethane Strategy. Now, I do acknowledge that that has been taken on board, and we have had the establishment of the Biomethane Implementation Group, which is a positive. On the renewable heat obligation, the obligation is an obligation on fossil fuel suppliers, similar to the way the Irish Renewable Transport Fuel Obligation Scheme works. The critical components of any renewable heat obligation are the threshold level, that needs to be set at a low level. The percentage obligation needs to be ambitious. The types of fuels is a key consideration that are allowed to fulfill the obligation, because the different fuels are at different cost points. And then the buyout rate needs to be high, needs to be higher than the most expensive fuel. This is some of the content of our document on the design parameters, and there's a lot more issues and items are outlined in that, or will be outlined in that. So imported fuels, how does the RHO give market certainty, or can it? And what are the different cost points of the different fuels, and how is that going to be accommodated? In terms of regulation, policy and planning matters, digestate, replacing chemical fertiliser, I spoke about that through renewer. Strong and clear guidance around animal byproducts. We have a situation at the moment where if you're a farmer, you can import slurry if your nitrates allow you from multiple farms, spread it on the land, no issue. If you're the same farmer and you have a biogas plant, you import from multiple farms, you'd have to pasteurise it. That's heating it for 70 degrees for 1 hour. That's a significant cost to the biogas plant. It makes no sense. So that's the type of issues that we're working to see can be addressed through engagement with the various different sections that need to address these points. It remains to be seen whether the new planning framework will actually help from the point of view of statutory guidelines around EPA and regulators, but we hope it will. And the big issue is planning permissions and consenting. There's a difference across local authorities in terms of their approach. We need strong political leadership, and that's a big issue and something which needs to be addressed. We discussed this morning earlier just about that community piece and the importance of that. And there are issues associated with the waste regulations that I'm not going to get into today, but they need to be addressed. The opportunities are great. We have lots of members that are interested in partnerships with companies or off-takers. We have lots of producers, we have lots of developers, and there are energy users interested. The big problem is the price and who bridges that gap between the cost of biomethane and the cost of fossil gas. And there's a lot of knowledge through IrBEA, through other associations, industry bodies from the UK, Northern Ireland and Europe that we can tap into. We have a large agricultural industry. We have low levels of renewable deployment, so the opportunity is great. So that concludes just a snapshot of some of the work we're doing and work we're involved in. And if any of you are interested in finding out more, we're happy to discuss it further with you. And indeed, we'd be delighted if you would consider becoming a member and getting involved in our policy groups. And I don't know whether I was mentioned at the start, but all the slides from today, we're recording all of the sessions, and all of the recordings will be published on the conference website in the coming weeks, including the slide shows themselves. So if anyone wants to look back on any of them, they'll be available there for viewing after. My own contact details are there. If you'd like to get in touch, feel free at any time. And thank you for your time.